Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with us with all the technological difficulties. We really appreciate you. I hear that there's snacks in the chat right now. um, we're gonna start over and pretend that didn't happen.
Yes.
So, good evening, adventurers. Is now more evening than it was 20 minutes ago. Welcome to the third episode of Goodberry Cafe. Goodberry Cafe is the little cafe that you stumble upon at the end of the road after a long day of questing. It's got a soft, warm glow that floods out into the street, a teeny little tune playing through the air that you'll hear from blocks away. It's the cafe where everyone is welcome to come in and pull up a chair. And today we're serving up a cup of inspiration, so I hope that you will come in and stay a while. My name is Jem. I will be your host today, and I wanted to start by saying Happy Pride Month. The rainbow flowers on today. Love is love, and like I mentioned earlier, everyone is welcome here. And this is only our third episode, so in case you are new, I want to let you all know a little bit about what this show is about. Goodberry Cafe is an interview show where I'll be chatting with guests who have a variety of geeky and nerdy and artistic hobbies and passions about the things that they do, the things that they love, the things that they create, and the communities they're a part of, and how all of those things that they enjoy affect them positively. This show is a warm, safe, and inviting space where we invite you, our listeners, to learn about these various hobbies and activities and maybe just find a new adventure for you to try out too. So today we will be speaking to Hector Reyes, social justice bard, indie tabletop RPG designer, veteran GM, fan event organizer, LARP enthusiast, I can't even talk today, and all around super geek. We're gonna talk a little bit about his hobbies and the things that he enjoys doing, and about returning to in-person conventions and LARP after the lockdown. But before we do get started, I wanted to thank our Patreon supporter, Silver King, for being our supporter this month. And if you, our listeners, like what we're doing here, be sure to follow and subscribe to us on Twitch, use your Amazon Prime subscription, and check out our Patreon. Now, Hector, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we get into the questions, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. My name is Hector Reyes. I am a lot of things. Queer, Latinx, but overall I am a geek. Um, I have been playing role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games since I was like 8 years old. Um, Mom bought me the big D&D box back in the 80s, and I would play it by myself on my little work desk next to my homework. I do lots of things. My friends were joking with me that I should do a series with you, Jem, about every individual hobby I have. So I'll try and cram it all into just like one spot. Right now in this life, I'm just playing games, running games. I used to be really involved in cosplay and the anime scene, and I still have a lot of love there. I love going to conventions, running conventions. LARP was mentioned, and I've been playing in various different kinds of LARPs, mostly like parlor LARPs, White Wolf LARPs, uh, both running and playing in for almost 20 years. Um, so I'm a professional nerd in the sense, not in the sense that I get paid for it, but in the sense that I do it all the time, and it just kind of absorbs everything I do.
Love it. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to have you here today. And you mentioned that you started getting into this at 8 years old, getting into the geek world.
Yeah, I come from the time pre-internet, when it was really all about your friendly neighborhood gaming store. And I was very privileged to be a boy. Those spaces weren't safe for a lot of people, but I was able to go into comic shops and see, and then I remember pointing at it was a big black box with a red dragon on it, and I said, I want that. And my mother was like, okay, and bought it for my birthday. And that was the beginning of a very long relationship with role-playing games. I didn't get into LARP until I was a teenager, via Vampire the Masquerade, when I was a budding young goth, reading Anne Rice novels, and I saw there was a chance to play D&D style role-playing games, but play like sexy vampires, and 14-year-old Hector just thought that was great. Um, so that's how I got, involved in LARP, and I've always been into theater, and so yeah, as Jem, as you know, the entertainment business is really difficult, especially if you're not living in LA. And I was raised on the East Coast in the South. So, while I did have a lot of theater aspirations, role playing and it was like my funnel. It was my way of like practicing acting without, well, anybody else's scrutiny. Um, Performance and role playing are, while they are cousins, while they are related, they're not the same. One is for us when we're around the table, and is to entertain ourselves, while performance is all about entertaining the audience. So, and then actual play streaming is like somewhere in the middle. It's kind of my happy place. That's why I'm trying to get into it. As somebody who's just been GMing for a really, really long time, a lot of different systems. And I lost track of your question because I got all excited.
I was just surprised that you started at 8 years old. So you've experienced what edition did you grab first?
I would say I probably played. So there was like I don't want to say it was first, because there was a very long time where you had like D&D in the box, and then you had advanced D&D, which is what like teenagers and adults were playing. In terms of the D&D I seriously played, it would be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition. That would be the one that like I really like got my start in. It was the one that I played campaigns in. I get a little bit of a giggle when people talk about, oh, the Sword Coast, and I'm like, oh, I remember that place. Like, because I had buddies with the modules. They used to come in these little paper modules, and we traveled up and down the Sword Coast, and went on all kinds of wacky adventures. I had issues with math, so THACO, which is like this weird mechanic involving like the number you have to roll to hit armor class 0, hurt my brain every single time. And I wasn't able to really kind of consume role-playing games and really understand them and run them well until 3rd edition D&D came out, and until I started playing White Wolf games, until I started learning more systems that are more focused on the narrative, and with different dice and different rules. For some reason, rolling 10d10s and making sure as many 6 and aboves are rolled made more sense to me than this is what you need to roll on a d20 to hit armor class 0 with a chart. And I remember when 3rd edition D&D came out, and they had these beautiful, colorful, shiny books that looked like tomes and treasure chests. And my friends were like, oh my god, all you have to do is add all your modifiers together and roll a d20. And if you get that, you hit. And I was like, so so technically I would have to say Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition and Vampire the Masquerade's 2nd edition. Those were my two kind of entry points, with like a little bit of GURPS, which is an old game by Steve Jackson, which is all like, and when I was Palladium games had all these weird games, and everything was like percentage skills. And the cool part of what got me into it was Robotech, because I was a budding anime geek, and Palladium Games had the license for Robotech, and they had the license for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the 80s. So there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game where you could make your own like mutant animal anthropomorphic like superheroes. And then they also had a Robotech role-playing game, so you could be like a Veritech fighter, and you could like go out in space and deal with this Entrati and like live your like. And this was like, this is old. These games are very old. Like late, I'm talking like 89, 88, 90, 92. So this was the world was very big when I first entered. It was just small in the sense that there was, like I said, no internet. So it was all about like who you knew, who your friends were, who you knew at the gaming store. And that was like my entry. So I've always had a very diverse entry point for role-playing games.
Awesome. And that, I feel like they should bring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one back. I feel like that would do well today.
They lost the license, so they
I
can't
bet.
do it. But it's still out there. It's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness. The book's already published. Like, you can't unpublish the book.
Yeah.
So I do know some people who have been making games inspired by that.
That's awesome.
There's this guy over at the Well Seasoned Stories community. I can't remember their name, but they are working on Urbanimals, which is sort of like the same concept, but they don't have the license. But you know, GM/game designer, you know, buy, borrow, steal. They say, you know, steal shamelessly from all of your favorite things and make
Everything
something new
is
out of it.
inspired. Yeah.
Everything.
There's nothing truly new. Everything is inspired by other things.
Yeah.
I do have to ask the question though.
Oh.
What is your favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons? I've seen that this caused full arguments before.
I would think I really like 5th a lot. I like a lot of the gaming concepts, the advantage disadvantage. It's funny because the thing that everybody complains about D&D is actually 5th edition is like what I like, which is that it tries to give attention to all 3 pillars, to both role-playing, exploration, and combat. And I have a lot of people like, not every game can be for every person, and because of it, the game sucks. And I'm all like, I appreciate the effort, you know, and every game is a work in progress. And D&D is in a constant state of revision. If you don't like this edition, maybe you'll like the next better. And maybe there's things about certain editions that you didn't like that might be good. Like, I have a whole bunch of friends in the indie scene who love 4th edition, and I don't get it. Like, it was just the one time I played in a 4th edition game, I kind of checked out, and I was just all like, what is this dice do? Like, I was very jaded. I was incredibly jaded. I would have to, my favorite is 5th Ed, but Pathfinder will always hold a very special place in my heart, because in the years before 5th edition came out, I played a lot of Pathfinder, and I just felt like the work that Monty Cook did and his team to take all these concepts from 3rd and 3.5 and streamline it, because 3.5 is my least favorite edition because it's too much. It was like, I would come to a game and my friends would be like, oh yeah, let's make characters, and it was a stack of books this high. Here you go. Here are all the feats in the game. And I'm just like, what? And that became normal. You know, like, I'm very much everything in the player's handbook. Like, and like, the source bloat just got really bad. Like, it's so bad that, like, even though 5th Ed is my favorite edition, I see these 5e Kickstarters coming out, blah, 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 and my brain just, like, oh no, like, I don't want to go back to the days of 3.5 when, like, you know, you had to have a library of books to give for every option, and just like, no.
As a player, do you have a favorite, like, pillar of a game, or do you like a combination of all 3?
like a combination of all three as a player.
Does it change as a GM?
As a GM, I love exploration. I really, really like exploration a lot, and I like to kind of use the exploration pillar as a foundation for facilitating the other two pillars. So I like West Marches a lot. So I love having a community, a town on the edge of a wild frontier, like a vast wilderness, but with ruins of a fallen past. And I just love building. So I'll build narrative based on this setting that they're exploring, and then the combat comes in with, of course, there's monsters there, So I have to be, if I'm being really honest, I really enjoy exploration. I actually had one campaign where um, the rest rules, like short rest, long rest. So I made it so that if you're traveling overland in the wilderness, I use the long rest rules, meaning a long rest takes a week and a short rest takes a day.
Dang.
But if you're in a dungeon, I went back to the normal, which is a short rest is 1 hour and a long rest, because I wanted to make overland travel and exploration matter more. I wanted people to be a little bit more careful with their resources as they're going through this this wilderness. But once we get to the dungeon, I don't want you I want you guys to be able to do the thing. You know what I mean? So I've had many a session where during that campaign where my players were doing like a cannonball run to the next dungeon so that they could get an hour short rest. It's like, all right, they'll just run through the entrance and shut the doors behind them, or it's like, okay, we're not exploring the dungeon. We're just gonna stay here in the foyer, take a nap for an hour, refresh a bunch of stuff, and then we'll go back out in the forest. And I'm like, guys, that's not how this is supposed to work, but kudos to you for figuring it out.
I feel that as a player. I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
So do you normally create your own worlds when you're GMing?
Yes, I am a homebrew lover. I have so much fun moving things around, switching things around, creating my own settings. I love it. I love world building. I have a setting that I've been running, that I originally ran in Pathfinder, that I've just continued running in 5e. And what I do is, as opposed to say Waterdeep, where it's in the same city all the time in Forgotten Realms, what I do is I'll start in one part of the world, and if I want something different, I'll zoom over to the other side of the globe, and I'll make an entirely new culture, an entirely new setting, but I'll keep the foundation. I'll keep the deities, I'll keep a lot of the history of the world, but I'll just create unique cultures, and every campaign is its own pocket, and sometimes things will happen in one campaign that will affect another. um Sometimes I will zip things back in time, and it'll be like, oh, there was this thing that in my last campaign that they read in a history book. What if I built an entire campaign off of that? And then I'll go back a couple hundred years, uh, and run an adventure there, and just keep slowly fleshing out this world, which was going to be a fantasy novel. I'd written an outline for a book that I was going to write called The Silver Griffin, or The Black Griffin. And that was supposed to be this revenge fantasy tale about this world where if you kill magical creatures, it diminishes the magic in the world.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that there used to be a war called the Magi Wars, where all of these powerful, wizard oligarchs essentially went to war with one another, and they were using magical creatures, um, you know, typical things in the monsters manual, essentially, is the way I was doing it, as weapons of mass destruction, including things like dragons and griffins and unicorns and all the things that we would associate with real world mythology, and just using the stats from the monsters manual to kind of sort of facilitate that, and inspire me when I was doing my world building. But then 2/3 of the way into the conflict, uh, all of the arcane casters, their level 9 spells stopped working. like their high level, like their 9th level spells, their 8th level spells, their 7th level spells, just nothing. They would just cast it and nothing was happening. And then they called like a peace talk, and they all talked, and they ended up putting all their minds together and figuring out, oh, it's because we're killing off all these magical creatures, which was inspired by a lot of different things. You know, Dragonheart, the old movie with Sean Connery, was one of the things that inspired me. A piece of fan fiction written by George R. Martin about Rand al'Tor fighting Jaime Lannister some years ago that he wrote on his blog was also inspired by that. For all you fantasy book fans, it's the hero in Wheel of Time, going up against one of the anti-heroes protagonists. There's no real heroes in Game of Thrones.
True.
And I was also deeply inspired by that. So there was a truce called, and the humans, the wizards, were like, well, no more killing magical creatures for any reason ever. And then the elves were like, wait, pause, because there are like things like evil black dragons like that cause us problems, and the humans are like, no. And we'll just tell all the common people that magical creatures are indestructible, so they won't do it by accident. And then the elves got very upset about all of this, and they left. And the elves went into the West, which I took from Tolkien, and took all the demi-human races with them. And as a result, I've kind of built all these different campaigns. I've run campaigns where everyone's human. And the reason why is because they are in a part of the world where the elves have left, and the Oath of the Magi, the various rules about not killing magical creatures. You can't be a sorcerer. Sorcerers are illegal. Warlocks are illegal. Like, I have all this like intricate stuff. You can still play whatever you want. Just know the government might be coming after you.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, well, my friends are being patient with me, right? Like with the whole like all humans thing. And I was like, you know what if I just went across the ocean into the West where the elves went and ran a campaign there? So I that's one of the things that I've been doing, is sort of just building this like project that maybe one day it'll be a book, maybe one day it won't.
Yeah.
Uh, I and then I've been trying to do these like kind of self-contained campaigns, these self-contained settings. Bori the Shining Isle is one of them, which on my itch, because I have an itch where I make games, I made a zine, a little adventure zine called Light of Hope, which is the second thing I published on itch. And that's like a little 5e adventure zine, all about this fantasy setting based on where I'm from, Puerto Rico. I did a bunch of research on Taino folklore, which is the indigenous peoples that I'm descended from that are native to the island. And I looked up their deities, I looked up their practices, and got a little creative. I looked up a little bit stuff on Spanish culture, and I have this little self-contained island paradise setting where I took out a bunch of like the traditional D&D races, but then I replaced them with like more stuff. So like turtles are like native to the island, and parrot
Cool.
Aarakocra that are all parrots are native to the island. Kenku that are snow feathered ravens. And I just looked at all of the fauna that were native to Puerto Rico, and then I looked at all these cool D&D races, and I just put them all together. And I was like, yeah, you're not gonna. And then I came up with ideas for like, well, I'm like, well, gnomes could be like tree spirits, which are like part of our folklore, and then like elves can be um like, I'll keep the stats, but I'm gonna have them be more like elemental spirit people that are like chosen by the gods. And I played around, and before I knew it, I was like, oh, I have a mini setting here for what was supposed to be like a one-shot adventure. uh so there you go. So I'm a consummate homebrewer. I will say the one setting that has kind of captured my imagination to the point where I ran a campaign in it and will be running the second part soon is Exandria. Exandria is incredible. It's such a good setting. I bought Wildmount book as soon as it came out. I have all the source books. I've got Taldor Airborne. I've got the Netherdeep. I have everything I need that is officially published, and of course I've got D&D Beyond, and I always click on Critical Role content for any of the house rules stuff. You know, if people want to play Blood Hunter or something like that, like I'm just like, okay, all right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll give it a shot. And Exandria is great. I ran this game called Wildlight, which is like a home game, and I ran it because there were some things happened in campaign 2 that I thought Matt was gonna get to, and he didn't. Like towards the end. And I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna run it. So I literally Wildlight, which is the home game that I run, it's on hiatus right now, but I'll get back to it. It starts on episode 50 of campaign 2. And like I'm like keeping track, like I'm on crit roll stats, like looking at the timeline and everything to make sure like while the crew of the Wildlight is not in the same place as the Mighty Nine at the same time, like to just kind of shuffling around, even though they're still dealing with the same bad guys. And it was interesting because I set that campaign at Yorhas. So everyone in that are all like loyal to the Kryn dynasty. Like half the crew is like 2 of them are well, they're drow, they're half drow mechanically, and they have like backstories and human parents, but they're drow. Like, let's be real here. So I actually experimented with people playing characters that are reincarnations. Like, I have a player who decided he was going to play a minotaur, but his character is like was in his previous life a 500-year-old drow cleric of the Luxon. So, but he's in this like, you know, big beefy body, and so fun. Just such a great crew of people. So homebrew primarily, and then, you know, Exandria is like right behind. I used to run Dragonlance. I used to run a little bit of Greyhawk, just like a little bit when I was a teenager. I'm not a big Forgotten Realms person, so I've never ran a campaign in Forgotten Realms. I've played in plenty. I loved Dark Sun when it was out, even though it's super problematic with its depictions of slavery and you know, kind of the racist stereotypes, and you know, and I didn't know any better as a teenager. I thought, oh yeah, feral halflings, that's great. That's totally not, you know, embracing a like problematic stereotype about indigenous peoples in South America. No, not at all. If they did a good cleanup on Dark Sun, I would be down. I would definitely be down if they and I might have to do it myself. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll just be like, here's all the problems with Dark Sun, and here's me cutting them all out. You know, sometimes it's about execution. You know, the concept of a D&D game where a group of people are fighting against powerful oligarchs that are enslaving them can be incredibly empowering. But the way they wrote it, like in the 90s when they originally wrote Dark Sun, it's very there's a player race in there that is like perfectly bred for slavery, which is so like, I don't know why 14 it just makes me feel icky. Like, and they're called mules. They're like half humans, half dwarves, and it's a whole thing, and they're very similar to like the half orcs we have now, but they're not the same. And it's just, there's just so many interesting things about that setting, and I feel like it's redeemable, but there's a lot of people who think it's not. So I get where they're coming from. So
I mean, you've got the creativity, it seems. So maybe redoing the good parts of taking the good out of that series and rehashing it.
Yeah, the books were pretty good too. I only read one, but the books were good. Not as good as the Dragonlance books. Dragonlance books were top notch, but those Dark Sun novels were pretty cool.
I got excited when you talked about Exandria, because on this channel, our Twitch stream game, Forging Fates, we are also set in Exandria. And so playing as a character in that same world where these events have happened. It's got its unique sort of excitement that it's like, even if this is our own game, still like writing a part of a story in this world that could feasibly be canon, who knows? Like, it's
Who
canon for us,
knows?
yeah. But
Exactly.
feeling like you're part of that bigger world is pretty cool.
It's so fun. I got a chance to one session. The player characters needed to use teleport by plants to get somewhere quickly, and they were in Rosanna, so the nearest tree was in your house. So I got a chance to do my best Taliesin Jaffe and Ashley Johnson impersonation. And I got to play Caleb and Yasha as NPCs, interacting with the group. Because first they were like, "Oh, we're just gonna sneak into this place and touch the tree," and then, they noticed that people were home. And I knew it was gonna take way too much creative energy to do the whole cast, so I was like, "Let's out shopping."
Shopping episode.
And Caduceus and Yasha are at home, and that's how we're gonna do this. And it was funny because I thought it was gonna be one of the oh, we're just gonna sneak in and we're gonna touch a tree, and then I was like, wait a minute, because I kept detailed notes, like all the way down to the day of the month that this game was happening, and I was like, uh-oh, they're home at this point. Well, time to roleplay. I even used because we had intro music that I had picked, and I even changed the intro music to the Critical Role intro music, because they were meeting the Mighty Nine. I was just like, the Wildlight meets the Mighty Nine, and it was cool. So,
Cool.
yeah, no, it was great. This last session, they had to fight the Laughing Hand. They had to fight the Laughing Hand and stop the Laughing Hand from invading Vasselheim. They couldn't kill him. They were unkillable. Like, they made all the lore checks. They just needed to, like, make it not worth it for Laughing Hand to invade Vasselheim, and they surely did. They pulled out all the level 13, 14 stops to, like, stop this unstoppable force. And they tried to, like, snap Yasha out of it because they knew her. But then, they made her hesitate enough, for them to, like, escape. And that was, like, it's a fun thing to do. It takes me back to when I used to run Dragonlance games and occasionally have characters from the Dragonlance novels show up as NPCs. It's the same thing. It's just really fun. And it's for you and everyone at your table, and it's cool,
And it seems like you've been a game master for a while. When did you make that switch, or what inspired you to make that switch?
I was about, I want to say, like 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, in that weird, awkward 3-year thing.
Yeah.
And I had a really good friend. His name was Logan, and he lived in North Carolina. He's still around. He's married with a couple kids now. And we really liked D&D a lot. And I remember running, like, one-on-one adventures. And then eventually we added other kids, and then a lot of the adults that we were gaming with, and older teenagers. I say adults loosely. Those people were in their early 20s. I'm going to be real here. They seemed like adults to me, but seemed very eager to just hand the reins over to the 13-year-old who didn't know the rules very well. So that's what happened. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to be able to have it so that all my friends played, and I didn't feel like I was a very good player because, like I mentioned earlier, I had the THACO problem. I had math issues, but I didn't really have to know the math if I was behind the screen. I just had to run the monsters, and then I could kind of trust the players to know how their stuff worked, because I was very naive. And then eventually I learned the rules and I kind of stuck with it.
And now, do you enjoy being a dungeon or a game master more, or a player?
I learned that I like GM-less games
How does that
over
work?
lockdown. So I used to think that I liked being a GM, and I do more. I used to think I liked it more, but then I would reach issues where like I would get very stressed. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of prep. People have a lot of expectations of you, scheduling, um, learning the rules, writing stories, uh, and then I would be like, oh, I need a break. I need to be a player for a while. But then as a player, I would have a good time because I wouldn't have to put in all the effort to like run everything. But then uh, all of my control was gone. I would lose a sense of control. I would feel, and that is not fun, like not knowing what's coming next. For some people, that's exciting, and it can be exciting. But like when when you're the final arbiter of the rules for so long, having to kind of like let that go can be hard. And I've engaged in a lot of difficult, like I am a bad player. I have said this before. I am fussy, I am demanding, I am a diva. Um and I have very high expectations, and I hate inflicting that on friends. I hate inflicting that on strangers. It's just rude, and I'm trying to work on myself. And right around the time that I was having this crisis of like, well, what am I going to do? I can't always be the GM, or I'm just going to like burn out, and I can't always be a player because I feel like I have no sense of control. And I thought, well, do I have to find another of my many hobbies to funnel into? And then I discovered GM-less games. And GM-less games are when the narrative responsibility is divvied up amongst all the players at the table. A really good example of a GM-less game is one of the OG ones, which is Dream Askew and Dream Apart. Um, it's written by Avery Adler and another author. I'm so sorry, other author of Dream Askew, Dream Apart. I apologize that I don't remember your name, but Avery Adler is like one of my like RPG game design heroes, so that's the name I remember. So sincerest apologies to the co-author. But Avery Adler and their co-author created a system called Belonging Outside Belonging, which is a token-based system. So you have weak moves, strong moves, and regular moves. Weak moves are moves that your character makes whenever they're not at their best. Strong moves are moves that you make when you are having a moment of triumph. And then regular moves are things your character does all the time. And when you do a weak move, you gain a token. The only way to do a strong move is to spend a token, and regular moves don't cost anything. And that's sort of, so you toggle your character's own successes and failures based on what is the most fun for the story. And then instead of having a GM, you have what's called setting elements, which essentially is a second character sheet, which represents an aspect of the setting and they have multiple moves. Each setting element has moves as well that don't cost anything. They don't cost tokens. That affect the other players. And like the general rule with setting elements is you never want to interact with your own setting element. You never want to role play with yourself. You always want to be role playing with another individual at the table. And you can put down the setting elements and switch them and trade them. And so the surprise comes in not from what the GM has planned for you. That everybody already knows. You're all creating the story. You also collaboratively build the setting as well. You pick from a series of pick lists and you build your own setting depending on which game you're playing. Dream Askew is about building community as queer people in a post-apocalyptic setting.
That's awesome.
It is very awesome. And the way you make your character is all pick lists. There's just different lists of options that you can choose to build your own unique character. And even those lists are suggestions. You can make up things as long as they're thematically appropriate for the playbook, which is sort of like your character class. It's very similar to your character class. Sort of if you took like race and class and D&D and background and kind of smushed it into like 1-2 page document, is how playbooks work, and I love it. Uh, Belonging Outside Belonging is I won't say it's the beginning of GM lists, but it was sort of how I got into it. And then Belonging Outside Belonging is very focused on marginalized communities and building community amongst marginalized people. So a lot of other Belonging Outside Belonging games are all going to be kind of connected to that concept. Sleepaway by Jay Dragon is about camp counselors over summer, over summer camp, uh, finding themselves and growing up, coming of age uh, uh, as essentially a teenage outcast, where the only friends you have are the ones you make at camp, and you are protecting the campers from a shape-shifting demon that wants to kill you all. So like on the one half, it's very like it's very like almost like Stephen King, like Stand By Me or It, um, and but it's just fantastic. Mwah. And people have kind of started to move away from the belonging outside belonging model a little bit, kind of played around, like Sleepaway, for example. You draw cards, and whatever you get from the cards, you match it to a chart, and that's what the Lindworm does to you and your friends. Yeah, so it's all very like, it's like, oh, another one. So a model that isn't belonging outside belonging, Dread is a good one. Dread usually has a facilitator. That's the one where you draw blocks, Jenga blocks, and whenever you do something risky, and the whole thing, whenever the Jenga blocks crash down, something horrible happens, and it's another horror one. Over lockdown, I burned through probably 10 different RPGs with my friends, and I was just like, I'm just gonna commit to one shots. We're just gonna do one shots. We're gonna do one shots. If we like our characters, we'll do a 2-shot, but like, no commitments. We can't go anywhere. I was getting unemployment, and this is what we're gonna do. And because I'm always running like multi-year campaigns, Gem, like all the time. Like that's my thing. Magnum opuses, which when you're running long campaigns, it's hard to test out all of the garden of role-playing games that are out there.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with cosplay. It's the same thing with historical reenactment, which is my other hobby. Wasteland, like it's why I'm really happy to be on the show, because like Jem, I feel like you and I are like, we flit from hobby to hobby and run into the same people. And so I think my favorite is GM-less games are starting to become my favorite, and it is because it is a wonderful balance between letting go of all of the responsibility and also being able to participate. I lost my point earlier. The point I was going to make was that the surprise is not what the GM has behind the screen. The surprise is the choices the players make in response to the story that we have built together.
Awesome.
So you're able to, above table, discuss, this is the villain, this is what the villain wants, and we're all talking about it like as a group. But how our individual characters respond to that is where the twists and turns come in, and it's just role playing like flipped upside down. I love it. I love it a lot.
I've never even heard of anything like that, but I'm super intrigued now.
I will send you some links after
Yeah.
after the show, so you can check them out, because they tend to be rules light. A lot of them are not designed for long-term play. A lot of them are designed for just a 2.5, 4 hours if you're feeling froggy session that is just like a self-contained story, um, and they're wonderful, and I'm glad that I discovered them. And because what I do is when I start feeling frustrated as a GM or frustrated as a player, I'll just reach out to my friends and be like, guys, we're playing a GM-less game. We can either play established characters that we did before or do it from scratch. Which one do you want to do? What genre do you want to do? Because I've played science fiction ones. I'm gonna name drop some stuff. Galactic 2E is pretty much Star Wars with the with the serial numbers filed off. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. If you love science fiction and you love Star Wars, Galactic 2E is for you. It's on Itch. Everything I'm mentioning is on Itch. Itch is where the indie scene is happening, like for real. Haven, a game of witches, which we play all the time, is about
Ooh.
playing witches who live in a community out in the wilderness and have a tense relationship with a village of like normal people. And there's like an enchanted forest, and it's all about the problems that happen within the community itself and confronting those problems. And everyone is a witch with a with different kinds of flavors and magic. And that one I've played a lot. Grand Guignol is excellent. If it that is queer Victorian romance horror. It's like Penny Dreadful, the role playing game. Like it is so fun. And right now, Luke Jordan, who's the writer, is working on a second edition. And they're probably going to do a Kickstarter maybe next year. Who knows? Uh, but like I said, GMless games have become like my happy place. And because I discovered them, I'm much more happier with my GMing and my playing than I've ever been since even I was a teenager.
Amazing to hear. Yeah, I've never even heard of them. And so they're on Itch, you
Itch.
said?
A lot of them are on Itch. You can put in the tag BOB. You can put in the tag NM, which stands for No Dice, No Masters. And if you kind of put in the tag into their search feature, because Itch it doesn't have a very nice UI. I'm just going to be real with you. The UI on Itch
Sorry,
is a
Itch.
problem, but I still love it. I'm still going to use it. I still love Itch. I just work on your interface. um, Also, if you just type in GMless, that'll also pop up a bunch of things, and there's so many different like genres. And there was a jam where they released like kind of like an SRD, like uh, and they were like, here, so there's a free PDF out there that teaches you step by step how to write your own
Ooh,
by the original writers. Yeah. So
that's
that's how
cool.
I was. Yeah. So I wrote one called Fair Season, which is the first game that I published, and that's about Ren Fair people and historical reenactors going on mythic adventures uh,
That's amazing.
while at a camping event. And it could easily be hacked for Wasteland. It could be hacked for a burner event. But it is a love letter to the Society for Creative Anachronism and to the Renaissance Fair and the LARP community, the fantasy author LARP community as well. And that's why I wrote it, because they always tell you when you're a writer, write what you know.
All right. I've heard SCA a lot. You just mentioned it.
Hmm.
Switching gears a little bit, I don't know what SCA is. So forgive my ignorance. I would love to know what is it and yeah, what does it involve?
So, the Society for Creative Anachronism is a 501c3 educational nonprofit that furthers the education of pre 17th century, the study of pre 17th century history, culture, on a global scale. In years past, it was focused on Europe, Western Europe in particular, but now, in the past decade, it has greatly expanded to embrace global pre 17th century culture. So uh, that is with kind of a focus on like the Renaissance, the Middle Ages. You have some people that do Roman, what we like to call early period, so Viking Age, like 1100 AD. Further back, there's some people who do 500 AD. Technically, the timeline is 500 AD to the end of King James, the end of the reign of King James, which was the monarch after Queen Elizabeth. It was her nephew. So that's like 500 AD to like 1650. And what happens is like we all sort of like study the time period. We dress in uh, Middle Ages clothing. We get together at different events. We have tourneys. So there is fighting, where people make rattan swords and rattan weapons and actual full armor and fight in tournaments. They also fight one another on the battlefield. It's a little bit more aggressive and I don't want to say dangerous. It's serious. We'll say serious. It's a little bit more serious than Boffer because Boffer, everything is very kind of padded. Um, but this is like solid rattan wrapped in duct tape. So you have to have like much more like robust armor than you would at a Boffer LARP, but they're very, very similar in terms of, having fighter practices and, battling for the position of king or queen, or royal. Gotta have respect for our non-binary folks. So fighting is like one pillar of it. There's arts and sciences, which is costuming, learning perfume making, cooking, learning all a manner of different skills that creating garb, learning how to period dyes, period herbalism, scrolls, illuminated scripts, all the study of all of the things that they did in the Middle Ages that artisans created. And they call it arts and sciences because there's some more like concrete things that are not creative but are like still important, like tent construction is considered a science, like how to build an actual pavilion in period style using wood and metal and canvas is a science. And actually the first laurel, which is like the highest award you can get in arts and sciences, was a guy who made pavilions. He made pavilions for events. Like it was, I think it was late 70s, early 80s. They were like, this guy's amazing. He makes our events ambiance, I think it was called. But they were like, this guy's amazing. Give him an award. And dancing, medieval dancing, it's kind of like the vibe can be very. Have you ever seen the movie Knight's Tale? So it's very medieval, but there's sort of this modern undertone. That's sort of kind of what it's like being at an SCA event. Is you've got people, doing these like dances, but then, you'll have somebody in like a totally medieval outfit with like colored modern hair. It's just the best. I love it. I started off when I went to an SCA event when I was 17. That was a demo in a park, and my dad bought me some cotton trousers, drawstring trousers that I could wear, and I was like young and skinny and full of energy, and I was so excited by all these people doing the third pillar is service, by the way, which I know you and I are intimately familiar with as people who have staffed for events. So don't wanna like not, there's a whole nother group of people who like run it to make sure the club happens. And that's I had a great time when I was 17. I had a couple of friends from my D&D group who were in the SCA who were doing rapier fighting, which is one of the things they do. You can fight either, and that's actually with metal swords, but they're blunted. They're blunted,
Yeah.
So that nobody gets hurt. And I had a couple of friends that did rapier fighting, and I went to a couple rapier practices. And then fast forward to when I was 24, I ended up not getting really into it, joining the club or anything. But fast forward to when I was 24 and I moved to Southern California, I was playing in a Vampire the Masquerade Dark Ages LARP. And I want to say actually like 2/3 of the people in that LARP also did the SCA, and they had a trunk of loner costumes that were all just garb from like SCA events that they would let people wear so that they could have everybody 100% in costume while we were role playing. And they were like, I was like, this is cool. And they were like, you should do the SCA. And I'm all like, really? Oh, I've heard of that. I heard of that when I was a teenager. And then the rest is history. Like my LARP friends, they got me into the SCA. I went out and started camping. I spent a good 10 years just sort of showing up to drink. Fell in with pirates, which is always fun. And then didn't really start taking it more seriously until maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. And then I started going to meetings, attending day events instead of just wars, which are the big, huge sort of festivals that we have, where people from multiple states gather together. There's a very large event in Pennsylvania called Penzic, and that's like 10,000 people
Dang.
attend that event, which is about as big as Otakon, I would say, back in the day, and big as AX at some point in its timeline. Uh, those numbers keep going up, and then down, and then up. And it's great, you know. But like with every organization, there's good and bad. But I love it. I have a good time. I do Bardic, which is where I study actual Middle Ages art and songs and poems. And I also compose as well. I compose poetry and stories. I do traditional like folk storytelling. And
Amazing.
yes, yes. So I am a bard in real life. I am actually the bard of Calafia. Calafia is are so every all the club branches are divided into like baronies, and then the baronies make up kingdoms, and they don't go by state lines. They don't go by United State lines. Like Caid, which is our kingdom in California, is like most of California, not northern. I would say Southern California up to like the middle of California, up to Fresno. So from uh, from San Ysidro all the way up to Fresno, and then all of Henderson County, which is Vegas, and all of Hawaii, and all of that is considered Caid, which is one of the kingdoms. And then San Diego, where I live, is considered the barony of Calafia, and I'm actually their regional bard. Like I performed 4 years in a row. I kept
Insane.
performing poems, songs, more poems, more songs, and the last year was my year. So uh, it's really fun. Uh, the fighting is cool. I have friends that fight, but I'm much more of a like I've done a little bit. I've got armor under that bed behind me, like a whole big duffel bag of it. So I have fought a couple of times, and I might get back into it. But my primary passion is storytelling and performing arts, and being a bard in real life. If we
Cool.
ever play a D&D game together, I'm probably gonna play a bard, and getting a chance to uh, the SCA gives me a stage to, I had mentioned earlier that I had kind of given up being a professional actor, um, and that the SCA gives me a chance to kind of reclaim that, to reclaim the ability to be a performance artist within my own hobby. And and it's great because I'll learn a traditional medieval tavern song at the SCA, and then I'll bring that with me to the D&D table. I'll actually like play a bard and I'll sing at the table, and it blows some people away. Some people are like,
Yeah.
"Is he actually singing? Did he actually write that poem?" Like and I love it. I love it so much, and I try when you have a lot of hobbies, the only way to really manage all the spinning plates is to make it so that they complement each other, you know? And I bring everything that I learn about history and culture uh, of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, and I try to bring that into my D&D games and into my world building. And there are a lot of D&D people who are members of the SCA, quite active. We'll be sitting there in all of our medieval clothes, hanging out, and then somebody will be like, "Oh yeah, like my cleric just hit level 4," and I'll be like, "Really? You play cleric? Nobody plays clerics anymore except me." And then it's like, "Oh, what's your cleric?" And this is like a normal conversation, and we're all dressed like we're extras in like that Ridley Scott movie, the Duel. Um, talking about our D&D characters. Um, I'm very passionate about the SCA and um, applied history, applied archaeology. Essentially, is what we're dealing with, because you can learn so much. It's one thing to say, "Oh, we have these extant patterns for this particular outfit from the 13th century. Um, Look at the stitching. This is interesting. How did they do this?" in the SCA, you have the opportunity to look at that extant pattern and recreate that extant pattern and figure out while you're stitching, oh, they used a backstitch? That's strange. Like, according to the backstitch is a modern convention, and you can find like evidence of all kinds of things because you're doing the thing as opposed to
Cool.
reading about the thing. If I can give you an example, there was a woman, there were statues of Roman women, and they couldn't figure out how these Roman women had these intricate hairstyles. They were like, how are they doing it? This doesn't make any sense. They didn't have lace fronts. Like, they didn't have any of that. So you've got all these mostly old white dudes like arguing back and forth trying to figure it out. And a woman who was a member of the SCA, who was also a hairdresser, and studied the history of hair, looked at the statues and was like, oh, they're sewn. They're sewing the hair. That's how they did it. And they're like, what? And she's like, yeah. And there's like, no, that's not possible. There's no way. She's like, watch me. And she would do demos. Like, she'd bring in models, and she did a demo, needle and thread, hair, and recreated Roman, like, I'm talking like imperial Roman women's hair in front of them using a needle and thread. And which, as a hairdresser, sewing hair is normal. Like, it's just what you do. And she got invited. She's like one of the first, I think, non-PhD holders ever to be a keynote speaker at a conference for Roman and imperial history because of her knowledge.
It's
So,
amazing.
yeah. And there's great parties. There's nerdy stuff, and there's parties at war. So, and people like to brew, and make, like cordials and secongibins, which are kind of like Middle Ages Gatorade. It's like, the secongibins are fantastic. Like, if you ever get a chance to try one, like, they're really, really good, and they're very, very refreshing. Because Middle Ages people were people, right? They had to figure out how to live, how to survive, and sometimes you can find cool stuff.
I have to ask because my character on this channel, she loves food. So
Yes.
I have to ask, so are they also doing like medieval recipes and stuff?
Absolutely. We do medieval recipes, we do feasts. I have tasted all a matter of interesting recipes from medieval Turkey, medieval France, medieval England. We did a New World feast once where it was all like pre-Columbian, like turkey and corn and Mexican mochas. Um, that was actually really, really fun. I didn't think anybody would listen to me because that was the old days. A lot of SCA people don't like to do New World stuff. In the old days, a lot of SCA people didn't like the New World stuff. Now it's much more popular. You've got a lot of people who are creating indigenous personas and cooking indigenous food. Um, the cookies. Oh my gosh. By the way, actual gingerbread is more like hard candy. It's like
What?
it's really tough. And I've had actual gingerbread before. Like, you got to be careful, or like if you like, I probably wouldn't have it now, like, because my teeth like are not in the best condition. But it's very tasty. Lemon cakes. God, there's a lot of curry, actually, surprisingly, because of the spice road. The lots of herbs and spices would come in from the east into Europe. So like a lot of the medieval recipes had different words for things, and our cooks end up kind of like have to like translate and figure out the cookbooks because, like, oh man, portions didn't become in vogue, like portions as we know it, until like 1700s. There's this guy on YouTube called Tasting History who is not in the SCA, but he knows about us, and he's met some of the cooks up in LA that are part of the SCA. And we adore him. He's great. And he breaks down, like, if you're really interested in the history of food, Gem, like, I would, and how to fix some of these things, I would watch Tasting History. This guy is awesome, and while he himself is not a Scadian, all of us are in awe of his stuff, because he'll go, half of the show is deep historical research, and then the other half of the show is him showing you how to make it with modern day ingredients and modern day tools, so you can like, you know, and it's good stuff. Like a frozen custard he made one time that was amazing, and he did a whole history of ice cream, which was really, really cool. I had some pretty good custards and creams and curried rice, and oh man, medieval feasts are the bomb. Like they're so fun, and you get all dressed up, and you're at the table, and then people like serve you, and it's a whole nother world. It's really cool.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And you said, so it's a club?
Yeah, it is a club. It's an organization. You have dues. Like I pay about, well, it's about $25-$30 a year. And then what that does is that gives you a discount on all of the day events that you attend. And it also gives you a discount on the big war events. So war is kind of like a camping. It's a 4-day camping event. Some of them are short, some of them are 3, some of them are like a week. Pensic is 2 weeks.
Dang.
1 week of peace, which is all about classes and parties and like ceremonies, and then 1 week of what they call War Week, which is when all of the fighters go to the battlefield and engage in battles. And there's tourneys and tournaments and things. That's not to say like the classes shut down. By all means, there's still classes, but it's just that's how Pensic prioritizes itself, is, you know, because it's a half a month, and people show up a week early and leave a week late.
That's crazy.
It's wild. A lot of people struggled when we were all in lockdown because this hobby was all about seeing one another in person and just public health versus, oh my god, like our hobbies in person. Like our arts and sciences in the SCA did thrive during lockdown. We got an opportunity to facilitate classes with people in Europe who are in the SCA.
Wow.
I got to do bardic circles, and that's when, you know, you just kind of go around and share poems and round robin in a circle. I've got to be in bardic circles with people from Canada and Australia and Ireland and New York, just all over. Like I have acquaintances and friends all over the world because of the ethereal SCA, which was what the SCA became when we were all on lockdown, because it's such a face-to-face hobby. And I feel really, right now, our fighters, I think, probably suffered the most. I know that's a really strong word, but like I have a lot of friends that fight, and not being able to go out on the battlefield and put on their armor and talk stick as they call it was really hard for them to deal with. They had to a lot of them had to delve into their other hobbies, a lot of the video games, tabletop games online, because they couldn't go out and practice because it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
But the ball is rolling now. Everybody, we're having tourneys. People are fighting again. People are reuniting. I just went to a big event called Potrero, which is in San Diego, and it's about anywhere between like 1,500 to 3,000 attendees, depending on the year. This year it was about 2,000 roughly. You know, and that was really great. Like getting to see everybody in their armor and getting to perform at a bardic concert, which I got to and help run it, and spend time with friends, and it was really a really great experience. I highly recommend the SCA. I know you have a lot of hobbies, Jem, but the people in your area, there's actually 3 baronies in your area. There's Leondemir Angels, and I don't remember what the third one is, but there's a whole thing. There's drama, and it's exciting. But all my LA SCA friends are really rad folks, and you would definitely be more than welcome with your creative spirit.
And do you have to be a member to go to the events?
Nope, the events are open to everyone as long as you like pay for your ticket for admission. You're good, and some events are free. Demos in particular tend to be free. Demos are designed for community outreach, and then day events are anywhere between $5 to $20, depending on whether lunch is provided, depending on the venue. You can also go to the big ones. You can go to wars, and the wars are just like a con, right? Like you don't necessarily have to be a member of the nonprofit to like participate
Mhm.
in the event. So it's open to everybody. Everybody is open to attend. Membership is primarily for saving money on events. So if you find yourself um, going to a lot of events, going to more than one war a year, there's 2 in our kingdom, but there's more in other kingdoms. Like so if you find yourself going to multiple wars, if you find yourself going to multiple day events to hang out with your friends, it's going to be cheaper just to buy a membership. The
Mhm.
other reason why you would want a membership is holding an officer position. So if you want to be involved in the actual nitty gritty of running of the club, whether that's as Exchequer, which is our treasurer, or like Seneschal, which is like our local club president, the people who sign the insurance paperwork, you have to have a membership for that, for liability reasons. Otherwise, no, we're pretty open to everybody. I We did like a big fundraiser thing right before lockdown, and I dropped like $200 so that I could have a membership. Or I paid for 3 years. I think I paid like 100 something. It was a
Mhm.
chunk of money, but I had it. I was like, I got my stimmy, and I was like, well, I could worry about the org, or I could just drop one
Support.
lump sum support. I'll have to worry about renewing my membership for like 3 years.
Yeah. And you said you could go to a what is a demo?
So demos usually are in parks. Sometimes they're at schools. And what they are is there's a big one at Comic Con actually. Are you going to Comic Con this year?
I'm trying to.
Okay. Have you ever been back in the mezzanine and seen people fighting in armor on the back patio during the day?
No. But I've only been to one Comic-Con, so
That's true. There's a big one at Comic Con, and what
Mhm.
they do is they have a booth where you can talk to the people, and it's all set up and decorated, and they're in their clothes. And then outside, a bunch of the fighters, both the heavy fighters, which are the ones that have the rattan swords, and the rapier fighters, put on like a mock tournament essentially, so that all of the con attendees can watch them in their armor. And then there's a herald that's announcing them. They're like, Sir So and So and Sir Tiberius, like fight, and it's like a wildly entertaining. And they have this kind of cordoned off area so nobody gets hurt. uh and that's like I want to say the biggest demo in San Diego. There's another one where we do another one in October for the out in Point Loma. There's this old like naval station, like Point Loma Naval Station, Liberty Station, that's what it's called. And it's been taken over. It's not owned by the military anymore. It's owned by the city. So there's like a bunch of businesses and stuff. But there's a park there, and they have a big trick or treat of like October Halloween family festival. And we've done a demo there before, like, and with different booths where everybody shows their arts and crafts, and then a couple of fighters are in the middle, like showing the fighting, and that one's really fun. You just kind of have to kind of look for them. Um, and like I said, they're free. They're designed for community interaction. And they usually have activities for the kids, and they're very fun. We have one called Arts in the Park, which I've run before. And that is like we bring out all the different guilds
Mhm.
and artisans, and they create this row where they display all of their art. The Bardic Guilds usually has a mini stage where they have rotating performances, and we do it at the same time that the Iron Brigade, which is the big fighting guild, has their melee practice, and melee is large scale battles. So it's really cool. We just take over this whole section of the city park where you just walk up and you can see all these people crafting, like weaving on a loom, silk painting, bardic performances. The nautical guild shows up and does like rope tying, and they're all dressed like sailors and pirates. And then further down at the end of the park, boom, there's people in armor battling one another, fighting. There's a little section where they do a little mock tournament where they're like, going head to head. And it was so fun to run that. When I ran it with my partner John, we did a scavenger hunt, and we gave everybody these like little like a bingo sheet essentially, where they could like check off all these things, like hear a bard sing a song, ask a fighter about their armor, just to kind of encourage the community to interact with everybody. And then they would end a drawing, and then whoever won the drawing got a free ticket to one of our paid events. So
I love that.
yeah, demos are great. Demos are wonderful. It's a wonderful, like, inexpensive way to kind of get involved in the SCA. But I highly recommend SCA.org. Has all of the information on how to get involved. There's a finder where it will let you know, like, you can put in, like, this is where I live, and then we'll let you know what your local barony is and take you to their website so you can contact them. And there's a kingdom calendar which tells you like all of our events, and it's fantastic. I think you might know the seneschal actually of the kingdom. Jem, have you heard of Ross, who used to run Kingdom Con?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, somebody that Ross doesn't know. That's magic. No. Ross used to run Kingdom Con for 10 years, and he's an all-around cool guy, and he's everywhere. If Ross doesn't know them, I know them. So yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So how does an SCA event compare to like a LARP, like a Twin Mask or Dystopia Rising or something?
So SCA is oh god, I actually heard this. So SCA is a sport LARP. And sport LARPs are much more focused on the act of fighting and the act of ANS than it is a particular character. Now, individuals do have personas, but we are not in persona when we're at an event. It is not required, as opposed to Twin Mask or Dystopia Rising, where you are in character during the event and you have designated out of character areas, or hand signals to denote that you're out of character. You're essentially out of character like all the time when you're at an SCA event. Some people will host camps where the point is to come in and be in persona the whole time. And that is, so it's kind of like the reverse of LARP, right? Of a performative or a narrative LARP, where in the SCA it's all about studying the skills and applying what you've learned about the Middle Ages, and occasionally creating space, whether it's a feast or a tea or a bardic circle, where you kind of lose yourself in the dream and kind of become your persona, as opposed
That
to
was
say
a great way.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an inversion. But it is a LARP, and there's a lot of people in the SCA that get old timers that get really like persnickety about that. And I just want to be like, LARP is not a dirty word. Calm down. Like, it's just
Why did they get persnickety about it?
just because they consider themselves as we are not a LARP. We're a historical organization. And I'm like, no, you're a sport LARP. You're a sport LARP. Belagarth is a sport LARP. Amtgard is a sport LARP. There's nothing wrong with being a sport LARP. In fact, I think if we were much more open about being a sport LARP, that we would probably retain young people a little bit better. There's always that argument about like how we're not about, oh, the SCA is graying, it's getting old, and I'm just it's going to, because you don't want to change. Like, if you're not transparent about, what did I do? I told you about the parties, right? I told you about the parties, but I also told you about the fighting. I told you about the demos. Like, we need to talk about all of the SCA, right? And if we don't talk about all of it, then we're not going to get a lot of people.
Mhm.
People
Yeah.
are becoming more interested in, like what you said, if you don't feel welcome in the environment, then you're going to go play Twin Mask. You're going to go play Dystopia Rising. You're going to go spend your money and go up to Canada and play in Army of the North. There didn't used to be any alternatives to the SCA in the 80s and 90s. Like the SCA was where it was at if you wanted to sword fight, unless you were going to a private school, or if you wanted to, portray like Camelot or the Middle Ages. And as the SCA kind of sloughed off a lot of its fantasy roots, because it started because of a party, someone's birthday party was King Arthur themed back in 1969 in Berkeley. And a bunch of fantasy writers and anthropology and history students thought it would be fun to actually throw an actual tourney in someone's backyard. And that was the beginning of the SCA, and it
That's
spread from
amazing.
there. So there are people from the 70s that still have elvish names on the books registered with the College of Heralds, which is not a thing now at all. And you know that is what it is.
That was a great way of explaining the distinction, and I think I understand that now.
Yeah.
So when you attend, do you have to be in costume?
So if you are no, so if you're going to a day event, or you
Mhm.
are what we like to call day tripping, which means not camping at one of the camping events, you're more than welcome to show up in your modern clothes and ask questions and observe. Um, but in order to like, if you're, it is strongly recommended that you wear garb. Um, you know,
Mhm.
it's not a rule. I know that at War After Dark, they really want people to wear garb at night, because so it's like the inverse of Ren Fair, right? So like Ren Fair, you come during the day and you can either wear an outfit or you can wear your regular clothes, and you kind of interact with the different guilds and things. And uh oh, no, let me rephrase that. If you're working the Ren Fair, you have to be in garb all day, right? It's
Mhm.
like required. You're in character. When the
Period garb.
sun, period garb. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You have to be. Or an accurate costume if you're like in a fairy guild or something. You
Mhm.
have to be on. As soon as those gates close and the day trippers attendees leave, time for the onesie, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very much more relaxed. People still wear costumes after hours, but people are more than likely. So in the SCA, when you're going to war, at least it's another flip. So during the day, a lot of people are much more lax, about what they're wearing, unless they're doing something special or teaching a class. People chill in their camps wearing nothing but like sandals and their pajama bottoms till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they're like, "Oh, it's starting to get cold. Time to change into my garb." Um, and at night, they prefer people wear garb because that way we know that you're with us.
Mhm.
Because not wearing garb after sundown is a sign that somebody might have snuck into the event that doesn't belong there.
Oh, it's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. So and by the way, that's like a cultural thing. That's not like
Mhm.
hard and fast, like written in the event rules, but it is something that's very, very important. And the SCA makes it really easy. They have what's called the gold key, which is at base camp, and you pay them $10. They give you some garb to wear, and then if you bring the garb back, they give you your $10 back, or you can buy it and just keep it. And people will donate their old costumes to the gold key
Cool.
so that newcomers always have access to their first outfit of garb.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And do you have any advice for people like me who might want to try SCA or even other kinds of LARPs, but are a bit intimidated?
I would go with a friend, or go with an acquaintance, somebody who is familiar, and someone who can kind of do the buddy system with you. Um, Very similar to if you haven't been to Wasteland, or if you haven't been to Burning Man, or if you haven't played D&D. Just there are ways of going at it alone. The best way of going at it alone is to email the Chatelaine, which it's a French word, and that, or newcomers, and that officer, it's their job to make you comfortable. It is their job to welcome you. It is your job. I mean, everybody's a Chatelaine. That's what we say. Everybody is an ambassador. But there is one person in every barony and in every kingdom, whose job is it to make sure that you feel comfortable joining the hobby and that you're pointed in the right direction. But if you have friends that are in the SCA, my advice is to stick with them. And if you want to learn more about like the hobby like as a whole, also reach out to the Chatelaine. Because I won't say that friends can steer you in the wrong direction, but sometimes friends aren't interested in. Here's an example. Let's say all of the friends that you have that are in the SCA are all fighters, and you're not interested in fighting. You want to sew, you want to make costumes, you want to like learn about history. So maybe that would be a case where you would want to like go camp with them, but also reach out to the Chatelaine so they can point you out. Oh, this is the arts and sciences officer. This is the person who runs volunteers if you're interested in volunteering because you have experience with event running. So it's one of those things. Now, if your friends share your passions, like if they're also costumers and sewers and stuff, then you're on the right track. You don't really need to talk to the Chatelaine, but couldn't hurt.
It's really cool. I like that they have like dedicated people to help bring you into the community, because it can be intimidating, and that's what I'm experiencing with a lot of new things I'm trying. Is that like, oh, this thing has like 200-page rule book. I was intimidated by D&D before I started playing it.
Right. No, I hear you. It's a lot. I lucked out. I was one of the weird kids that got into it at a very young age, and I kind of grew up with it. So, but I can imagine that if you didn't play D&D at all, that starting now, like as a young adult, is a lot. It's a lot to read.
Yep. So how would you say that the culture and the environment surrounding events like this, or like LARPing events, has changed over the time that you've been involved with it?
I think that we are a lot. I'm going to get a little serious. I know this is supposed to be warm. I think that we've done a really good job of. How do I want to word this? I think things have become more inclusive. I think that we have gotten better about policing our own communities in regards to, I'm just going to be honest, predators, people who would prey on people, particularly marginalized people. I think that we treat, and when I say we, I mean the communities that we're talking about. I think women are treated far better and have more options than before. I have heard some stories about baronies that would not, in the 70s, would not allow women to fight because a lady's place is sewing and making costumes. I have heard stories from the 80s. One of my good friend, Larissa, she's a costumer, a cosplayer, and her aunt did the SCA, and her aunt would tell her stories about how she wasn't allowed to make armor, even though she liked doing leather work. And they were like, no, armoring is men's work. You focus on making garb. And she just didn't want to be in that environment anymore, And I think it's not like that now, but it was then, and she quit the hobby. So I just feel like, now, mind you, I said these things are better. I didn't necessarily say that they are meeting my expectations of where they should be, but one step at a time. We got to put one foot in front of the other, and I think things have become much more. There's much more options now. Like I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to do sword fighting and you wanted to study the Middle Ages or kind of like escape, in the 80s and the 90s and in the 70s, the SCA was where it was at. And like the connection between the SCA and science fiction fantasy fandom was like this. You know, there was always an SCA booth at every con that you would go to. And there used to be, so I think that there's just a lot more opportunity now. There's a lot more organizations. The tables are much more open, much more welcoming. Do I think there's a lot more work to be done? Yeah, but things have changed a lot since 1994 when I played in my first LARP.
Mm-hmm. And I want to push on that a little bit. How do you think it could still stand to improve, like the community itself?
I think so LARP communities, gaming communities, nerd communities are a microcosm of what's going on in the greater society, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we just need to dedicated DEI officers, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. We need to have dedicated DEI officers in all of our organizations. Everybody needs to read the article, your safety tools, your LARP safety tools will are not safe. Which is we need to educate ourselves in the concepts of black hats, which are people. That's a hacker term for people who break into systems and mess them up. We need to. I think like every event organizer just needs to be educated and aware that black hats exist, that people can figure out your rules. Like we can put all of the rules and guidelines for how to interact with people, how to report incidents, transparency. It's great. The energy is awesome, but we also have to keep our eyes open that some people will just learn those rules and exploit them to be able to get away with it. Supporters of abusers are groomed, just like victims are groomed. So, and I know we just got very, very dark on our cozy show, but I think that the way to continue to have things be safe is to just be educated on it, be aware, be open to evolving language. For example, I have excised the G word from my language. I say traveler or I say Romani, and there's a lot of people in the greater LARP communities that still insist on just letting it fly out of their mouth, and um, that's it is what it is, right? Like I can control myself, I can control my environment. I just feel like we have to keep trying, we have to keep working to be better, you know. It's not there's a lot of sometimes the phrase leave politics at the door is not what we think it means. What a lot of us think it means is, okay, we're going to avoid ugly, nasty arguments in our community and we're just going to focus on our characters. But and for some people, like being gay isn't political, being brown isn't political, but is a contingent of people in our greater communities that think those things are political. And like I don't stop being brown and gay after I leave an SCA event. I'm still brown and gay in the SCA event. Like it's like I can't leave it behind. It's
Yeah.
always with me. So I think we just need to approach this with empathy and understanding. And on the other hand, while we are doing the work necessary to build safe systems, we also need to try and focus on education and restorative justice, which is hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And I don't blame anybody for stumbling on that. But our hobbies are supposed to be where we find peace. And we can't find peace if we don't feel safe.
Amen. 100% agree with that. That psychological safety is part of the reason why a lot of us flock to these kind of hobbies, especially in the nerdy, geeky communities. It's like we go where we found some place that we can be ourselves. And so if that feels threatened, then where do we go from there?
Yeah,
so
exactly. And it's
important.
sometimes I feel like it's why I think you and I have just to get a little personal, have jumped to so many different hobbies. That's the one thing you and I have had in common for the many years we've known each other. We keep crossing paths, you know, because if you are not feeling appreciated, like say in the cosplay community, my good friend Larissa, fantastic costumer, she's wonderful, but she ran into an issue where there was a phase, I want to say about 10 years ago, go with back time, where she felt like it wasn't about the craft, it was about how sexy you looked in your cosplay. And and that is a way to have fun. Far be it from me to judge anybody for sexy cosplay. I am for it. If it makes you feel good, do it. But when it starts to become so endemic that that's all it is, and that people who actually have talent at sewing and aren't appreciating the art of sewing, it can be very discouraging, which can push us into another hobby and then another and another. And it's like for some people, you're in this constant like migration to be like, well, is it going to work out here? Well, is it going to work out here? Well, is it going to work out here? Um, uh, which before you know it, you have this huge plate, and you're like, I don't have time for all these things I like, And I was just
Call it
trying to
out.
find, I, we are peas in a pod when it comes to that stuff. I'm just like,
Definitely.
yeah,
And bringing it back to something you said earlier, that's
yeah.
the hobbies that we're involved in do all inform and help each other. And I thought that was a really great quote you had earlier in our conversation, that the things that you learn are the things that help you with the communities, and one group or one hobby
Mhm.
can so easily be those skills and talents and exciting little things to add to the other hobbies, and it's all interconnected in the end. We're all nerds, we're all geeks.
Absolutely. I one of the reasons why I didn't get really involved with the SCA the way I am now is because uh, I was running anime kanji with my friends, with my people, and running an anime convention takes a lot of time. So and I have talked to, now that I am more involved in the SCA, some of my friends that are officers, and I've had a stint as an officer and doing things, not now, but I've gotten very involved. Um, they understand. Like I have explained, I was like, look, I know you've seen me around for a long time. I know that I was just a guy that came around and drank and partied at the big events. But the truth of the matter is, it's not that I am not a dedicated, experienced event runner. It's just that after running anime kanji, I wanted a vacation. And I wasn't just involved with anime kanji, I was also involved with conjecture. I was also involved with Condor, the science fiction convention stand in San Diego. I was going to Lost Con, which is the big LA science, like I
Mhm.
was in it when it came to cons. And that's not including the different cons I went to promote anime kanji. I was going to AX, I was going to ALA, I was going to Pacific Media Expo. I was, the only reason why I didn't go to Fanime was because of Potrero, because it's on the same weekends.
Yeah.
The only rereason why you never saw me at Fanime back in the day. So it was like, so when I got to my SCA peeps, I was like, I just want to wear Middle Eastern clothing and drink. That's all I want to do. and I was young and reckless, and I didn't understand that there was so much more to offer. And I was just and now I'm like, I don't need to drink. I don't need to, be, wearing the most salacious, colorful thing. I can wear something a little, not more conservative, but something a little more historical. I have an awesome Viking outfit. Like, and something that a lot of people don't know about the the early Viking age is that it's not drab and brown and leather. They wore bold, bright, colorful fabric because they wanted the gods to see them when they were in battle.
I didn't know that.
So yeah. So I have a bright yellow hood. I have like a orange tunic. I have an olive green one. I've got these big billowy baggy pants that are they're brown, but they're cool. They're like like a tree bark brown, and I've got leg wraps, that are bright sky blue, and little leather turn shoes, lots of jewelry. Like I look good, and it was all like custom. They're all gifts, and it was all custom sewn for me, by really talented artisans. One of them being my boyfriend. Um, so but there is an understanding amongst nerds and different hobbies, because once I told them, hey, I was running an anime convention that got double expected the attendance the first year and then double the expected attendance the second year, I had a lot on my plate. That's a lot of work in between events to make that happen. Uh, so I just wanted to relax. But now that I'm not running conventions anymore, I'm able to take all of my event running experience and funnel it into this hobby to make it better.
Mhm. I love it. And like myself, you've been in so many hobbies. You've tried out so many different things. But is there anything that you've worked on or contributed to that you're particularly proud of? Tough question.
The tough one. Oh my gosh. I think that, I would say year one of Hanadoki.
What year was
Things,
year one?
year one was, hold on. Let's go to the magic of the internet.
I'm trying to think if I was there. I don't think so, but I don't know what year it started.
2017, I think.
I was there, I think.
Yeah. And like year one was just there. It was the big comeback, right? It was like the reunion. It was like all of the anime kanji people had come back together. And I wasn't con chair, but I was on the board. And I remember just seeing Allison just fly, just with her crew, and it was like a lull. You know how sometimes the cosplay convention scene can have explosions of drama and conflict, and I just felt like Hanadoki year one was a time where it wasn't touching me, where I was just there to troubleshoot, put out fires, and there was a lot of like excitement, um, getting the band back together. And I did a lot of hands-on work, um, at that particular convention, helping Allison, with whatever she needed, as con chair. I found we had some issues with Artist Alley, and I had people on my troubleshooting team that immediately filled the spots. And Artist Alley, which could have been a disaster, was a total hit. And everyone, I feel like, had the space, and we were all in a good space. So I think year one of Hanadoki was probably one of the events that I'm most proud of, because I was able to both let go of the reins, but like stay back and support others, in accomplishing their dreams of running a successful event.
I love it. And that year I was there, and that year sticks out to me as an attendee as one of my favorite conventions I've been to. I always
Fun.
talk about that. Yeah, it was a
It's
great
a fun
con.
event. It was a fun con. It was a great con.
Now, I want to make sure that we have time for listener questions.
Okay.
So, to the listeners out there, if you have questions for Hector, type them in the chat. While we wait and give people a chance to ask some more questions, we've got some already. I'm gonna switch over to our dicey questions segment.
Yes.
So I'm gonna roll this d20 and ask you the corresponding question to what it comes out to.
All right.
All right. We've got a 7. You can't really see that.
Okay.
So if you had to befriend any superheroes, who would you hang out with and why?
The Runaways. from
Ooh.
Marvel's Runaways.
And why?
They're so down to earth, like, and they're very so I read Runaways before I moved to California. So I did not realize that in the Marvel universe at the time, in the comics, there were no superhero teams. West Coast Avengers, I think, had just disbanded at that point, and my friend was like, "You need to read this," and I read about it, and it was just a group of teenagers. I was in my early 20s, so I was still kind of connected to high school, like in my mind, like I was closer to the teenage experience than I was the adult experience when I read that, and I felt those characters in my spirit. And one of them was a goth witch. Oh, I was all over it. I read that whole first arc because it was collected in a trade at that time, and I burned through it. I watched season 1 of the show when it came out, and I loved it. And I just sort of want to just like give those kids a big hug and be like, thank you for protecting the world when the Avengers couldn't, you know? And having to face your parents as supervillains, my heart. So it's got to be the Runaways.
I love it. Thank you for that answer. All right, we're gonna do one more die roll before we jump into the listener questions. Oh. A 2.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. I think this one's gonna be hard for you.
Oh, here we go.
What's your favorite franchise and your least favorite franchise? I wouldn't know where to begin with this.
My least favorite? This is rough because I like a lot of things. What in the world did I watch that I was just like, I'm still gonna finish it, but out of all the things that I've watched, I would probably say The Order on Netflix. It's just very, like, I like everybody else, but I want the main guy to be, I don't know if I want him to be more attractive or more charming, or I just feel like all this drama for this guy just is not like the characters, the minor characters, like secondary, everybody around him is great, but him, I'm like, I think I'm just tired of another milquetoast mediocre white guy, like just sort of tra-la-laing through the plot. Everybody else is cool. I'm gonna finish the show for everybody else. I mean, it had freaking Kaylee from Firefly as a villain, so like, I gotta finish it. And then I think that's the tough one, is my most favorite. My most favorite. Oh, this is rough. Okay. No. I think probably. Oh my gosh, why are you killing me? I want to say Star Wars. If I'm thinking about like what's been with me since I was a child and what I will always watch. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to say Star Wars, because Star Wars has been with me like since like I was like 3. You know, like I watched the Ewoks Saturday morning cartoon. I watched the Droids cartoon. I was one of the few people in my friend group that actually liked the prequels. So yeah, I gotta say Star Wars. I used to read the expanded universe novels and comic books. Not a lot of them. I wasn't like super into it. But I read some of those. I thought they were cool. I can remember walking into like the book, like a Walden Books when I was a kid, and I saw the Jedi Twins trilogy, and which is not a thing anymore, but it was a thing back then. And I was just like, I'd be like, oh yeah, they had twins, because like Luke and Leia are twins. Obviously, they're like Leia would have twins. This makes sense, like, you know. And I remember like such a sense of wonder holding that book. I don't care who judges me. I saw Force Awakens 7 times in the theater. 7 times
No judgment here.
in the theater. So there is just something wonderfully delightful about. I've seen Hidden Fortress, which is the Akira Kurosawa film that the original Star Wars was based on, because I wanted to know what the tea was, like, for real. Like, I was all like, okay, Akira Kurosawa won the lawsuit, right? Because he sued George Lucas. I don't know if you knew that. And he won. And I watched Hidden Fortress. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, it all makes sense now. And like, I would say that my fandom came full circle when I watched Star Wars Visions.
Oh,
It really locked me in
that was
because
magical.
it reminded me so much of Hidden Fortress, the concept that Star Wars was inspired by Japanese cinema, and then in turn, Star Wars inspired Japanese animators and their work, and now they're getting a chance to showcase their love of Star Wars through their art. I also loved it because it reminded me of the Animatrix, which I loved. So we're gonna go with Star Wars. I'm gonna commit. Star Wars will always have a very special place in my heart. Has since I was 3 years old, and I will probably be, cuddling a Grogu like plush when I'm an old man in my 90s about to take my last breath. Like, oh, give me some to the
I love it. And it is an incendiary statement to say, but I also did not hate the prequels. I don't think they deserved the hate they got. There are parts that are terrible, for sure. But
I ran a campaign for my friends using the framework of Phantom Menace, like the plot points. I changed all the names and everything, and they were like, "Oh, that game was so great," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it was based on Phantom Menace." They were like, "Oh, that's weird. We hated Phantom Menace."
Not a die question, but out of all of the Star Wars series or movies, which one is your favorite?
I would say, like, out of the movies, it's tough because oh, you know what? No, it's not tough. Rogue One. Fantastic, self-contained story. Just, you don't need to watch New Hope to watch it. It helps,
Yeah.
but fantastic. Rogue One is everything. I feel like everything that's going on with new Star Wars right now was birthed with Rogue One. Rogue One was like really good.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that is like my top out of all of them. I love me a good self-contained Star Wars story. And then TV series, it is Mandalorian.
Oh.
Yeah, especially the first 2 seasons, like, as one story, like, from first encountering Grogu all the way to like the Luke Skywalker like reveal, like that arc in television is my absolute favorite, and it's so difficult because I really like Rebels. I love Rebels a lot.
Yes, I was gonna say
I
that.
burned through, like, it's just like I really like Rebels, but like Mandalorian just squeaks by because it's live action. It just kind of squeaks by.
Yeah, Rebels has my heart. Rebels is the thing that like turned me from a Star Wars fan to a super fan, like Star Wars super fan, like after watching Rebels. That I can't wait to see those characters come to life too soon.
Yeah. Yep.
So we do have some questions from the chat.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
All right. So the first one that I can see, if I missed any that came before this question, then just comment it again. But the first one that I can see is, where can we learn more about SCA?
Oh, well, as I said before, SCA.org has all of the information you need, including what the organization is about, how to get involved. There is a newcomer section on the webpage that you should be able to click that will, give you much more like succinct, down to earth like explanations of the club. That is going to be your best resource. they recently did, I want to say like 2 years ago, they did an amazing remodel on the website and took it out of the 90s into the 21st century. So it's wonderful on mobile, so you can look at it on your phone. And like I said, SCA.org is your primo. Also, if you're more of a social media person, there is a hashtag called #MySCA. So if you want to look through TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram to get kind of a visual taste of what people are doing, get to know personalities within the SCA, I would look up that hashtag. That is the hashtag that our society social media officer, has been encouraging everyone to use on their content.
And someone asked for your socials, and we dropped your Twitter, your Instagram, and TikTok in the chat. But
Yep.
one thing I want to make sure that we also get is, you said you have your published work on
Yes, on Itch. Hold on, let me pull that up really quick so you guys can, take a look at my games. And I do have, for people who are, because the economy is not doing well right now. So I do have community copies for anybody who is economically, if you're having any difficulties, if you just can't afford it, I have, do not be ashamed. I'm going to drop it in the chat myself. There we go. There we go.
Awesome.
And that is my itch link. As I was saying, do not be ashamed to grab a community copy. If you're the kind of person that wants to see what you're getting before you purchase it, grab a community copy. I want my game to be played. As much as I would like to make money off of this, I'm not getting into, I didn't get into game design to get rich. I got into game design because I love games and I want people to play my games, essentially. So I have a very, when it comes to, I just have a very laissez-faire mindset. Pay when you can. That's all I gotta say. Or if you can't support me, support another marginalized creator when you get money. So there are three games on that page. There's Fair Season, which is my love letter to the SCA and to Ren Fair and to LARP. It is GM-less and uses the Belonging Outside Belonging system. And right now it is on the queer community bundle, which you can get link to the bundle. There's a little thing on there that says in a bundle. Please go to the bundle support. There are about, I believe, 400 LGBT content creators that we have all bundled together our games, so you'll be able to get all of them for one price. So
amazing.
Yeah, no, like it's very, very important. We do this every year for Pride Month, and so feel free to, instead of purchasing the game, purchase the bundle. Purchase the bundle. Support the community. The other one is the zine that I talked about. So if you're more of a D&D person, Light of Hope is my zine that I did that is inspired by Taino culture, and it also uses Matthew Colville's action-oriented monsters system that they made over at MCDSE. Matthew Colville is this really cool game writer and personality, and he made this awesome alternate way of doing combats where you turn the D&D combat into a narrative. So you give monsters villain actions, which are similar to legendary actions, but they can only use them on a particular turn. So you create essentially a story arc with the monster. So if you're a fan of that and you want to try something different, go ahead and pick up the zine. I call it a zine because it's not just an adventure. It has music suggestions. It has suggestions for books that you can read. So there's lots of, it's a little kit, so it's more than just an adventure. And it's also printable in a little sleeve. So print as booklet. And then last but not least is Dual Souls, which I put out for Pride, which is, I call it an NB solar punk epic fantasy. where you play queer and non-binary people in a solar punk future, who have gained like superpowers and magic, and have to defend these sort of collectivist small communities that have built in the wake of a world there was like a fallen industrial empire, and now these monsters that are products of, you know, pollution and toxic waste under the earth are risen, and you have to defend these like solar punk villages that you live in from these monsters. So it's super fun. It's super crunchy. It is not play tested. So if it is messy and all over the place, that is by design. So have a good time. If you play it and you're just all like, this is a problem here and there, please message me. I'll fix it. Or I'll just say that was on purpose. But I am open. I'm open to feedback because it's the only thing I haven't play tested. But I just really wanted to get it out there, to represent the community.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that, and I hope everyone checks out your games. For anyone looking, the link is in the chat. And another question we got is there anything that you want to do that you haven't yet?
Okay. Labyrinth of Jareth.
Oh,
I've been living in San Diego for almost 20 years. I even had Cypher when I was running Anime Kanji. Cypher was one of the wonderful people in the greater nerd community that was not like a mentor. You know, they looked out for me. They were very kind. Every single time I saw them at a con, they shook my hand, and they were just always, they're great people. Cypher Studios is an amazing place. I've had friends that have worked there on and off for years, but I have never, even when Cypher was offering me free tickets, got the chance to go. So, and primarily it's because it's during what I like to call the San Diego, what did I call it? The June, the San Diego Summer Cannonball Run, right? Like, which starts in July. So if you're a nerd and you live in San Diego or Southern California, it's intense. So you have AX the first weekend of July. Then you have AX, Comic Con, Labyrinth of Jareth before they moved to August, and Pride, San Diego Gay Pride. We're all in the same month for over a decade. I managed to get 3. One year I managed to do AX, Comic Con, and Pride all in 1 year, like all in 1 month, and that was exhausting, absolutely exhausting. But I really want to do it now. My partner, John, is an amazing costumer, so talented, and I have built up tons of costumes. That closet is just, it's half my real clothes, half all my hobby costumes and gear and props. Yes, Labyrinth of Jareth, I want to do it. I definitely want to. It's in August, right?
Yeah,
I
this
still
is the
have time.
year.
This
Yeah,
is the year. I think this is going to be the year.
same with me. I haven't done it yet, but I'm trying to go this year.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready. And I want to do the whole thing. I want to like get the hotel room, which I might not be able to do this year because there's not enough planning, but I think this year I'm going to get a ticket and then, Airbnb and chill, but then 1 year I want to get a hotel in was it the Biltmore? I want to get a hotel in the venue and stay and do the whole like experience. But yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do Labyrinth of Jareth and wear an amazing costume and kill it.
Yes, we'll connect.
Yes, yeah.
Another question I had is, do you have any short poems or stories you'd be willing to share? If not tonight, maybe another night. You were so passionate speaking about storytelling, and they'd love to hear some of your work.
Oh, okay. Short poems or stories. I got tons of short poems. That's all. Let me see what I got. I wrote blacksmith. Trying to think what I want to share with you guys. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Thunderman. It doesn't have any profanity in it, but it's a little, spicy. The Thunderman. He is strong and young, shoulders broad and a gleam in his eye. After a drink, his lips curl into a smirk. When the sun is high, he removes his tunic, with skin fresh, toned, and bare. He aids his siblings in raising tents and canvas walls, all while sweat pours from his brow and glistening drops against the sun. At night, he drums by the fire to the rhythms of the night, inspiring coin-sashed dancers to shake, twirl, and gift the firelight with explosions of color and sound. When the night grows cold and embers die and tankards run dry, he makes entertaining shadows by the dying firelight within his tent, with those who have the privilege to warm his tent that night. Next day comes, and geared for battle he emerges, standing strong in mail, plate, or leather, bearing sword, spear, or mace, the standard of his clan proudly upon his shield and tabard. He joins his siblings in the battle, the forefront of the king's war. His roar and ferocity frighten the foes of his bannerfolk. Victory through intimidation is earned. He returns from battle, bloodied and weary. He is fed and washed and rested. His tankard is filled as night returns, and he calls for his drum. The revels are greater as victory is celebrated amongst the clans. For those who bear water to his parched lips during battle, who dance to his entrancing rhythms by the fire, for love-struck retainers who wear blue feathers in their caps, there is no greater victory than to enjoy the warmth of his tent and those entertaining shadows by the dying firelight. So, quick note, a blue feather is a symbol of the LGBT community in the SCA. I have also seen the blue feather expand as far as Wasteland.
I love that so much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. It's one of my older pieces, and I just,
It's beautiful.
you're welcome.
Oh man. And I think this is the last question that we got from the chat. But of all your
right.
hobbies, which is giving you the most life?
This is a tough one. This is a tough one. So tough. D&D, tabletop games. I would have to say, just being involved in gaming in general is really like it's really giving me life, and sort of the transition of my hobby to streaming has been really exciting. I feel like lockdown was the dress rehearsal. I was the person who didn't believe in gaming online. I was like, no, it's personal. It needs to be at the table. I need to feel your energies. Like, I was very pretentious. And then got lockdown and I had no choice. I had no other options. Like, one-on-one games with the roommate, like, no, we're not, I wasn't doing that. And I broke past my own prejudices about gaming online. And now that now I don't know if I want to game in person. I've done some games in person, but like, I've gotten so used to being able to just sit on my Discord and have my snacks and be in my room. And then, there's no need to rush out the door after game is over. We can just sort of sit in our rooms and relax and decompress, and once I leave the channel, I can just go right to bed. Like, because of that, I getting to be able to put my content out there to stream it, baby steps. right? I'm working on it, but it's really exciting. It's really giving me life. Like I've got plans in the works. I reached out to some friends that were all people of color. I took a step back and I was just like, well, how many Black and Latino and Asian nerds do I know that really love this hobby? Um, and I did the work. Okay, and then I found like 10, I had 10 people to reach out to. Some of them you know or might know. And I just reached out to them in a group chat and I was like, look, I want to do something. The date that I'm setting for is January. This is the premise. Would you guys be interested in starting an all, BIPOC actual play stream? And I've been getting some really positive answers. There's been some people that have been like, I don't know, there's so much going on. And I'm like, that's why I picked January. And January is not hard and fast. I just know me, I can be flighty. And if I don't give myself a due date, that I'm just gonna, like, I would be like, oh, wasn't I supposed to start something in January? And I didn't write it down and I didn't commit to it. So personally, I would rather reschedule a project like that when I have people nailed down than, than not have the date. You know what I mean? Because you never know what's going to happen in between now and January. So yeah, gaming is really, really, really giving me life, because even if I don't have the energy to stream or play on someone's charity stream or something, I can still just play at home with my friends on my personal Discord. Or when I'm like wanting to share my creativity with the world, I can reach out and talk to people and I have the connections. And, I bought all this nice hardware, which is doing pretty good for me. I mean, we're talking. And yeah, gaming is really giving me life right now. Yeah, I know I talk a lot about the SCA, but right now, they're kind of like, and right now gaming is up here, and I'm still on the high because I went to an event. That's what the thing is. Like I just went to an event, a big camping event, so I'm very like, oh, the SCA. But like if I'm really thinking about it, it's gaming. It's D&D.
And I think that's a good place for us to start to close out. But before we do close out, is there anything you want to plug? Where can we catch you next? What's coming up for you?
Coming up for me next is I am currently we're recording. We haven't done any playing, but a little sneak preview. I will be. I was cast in. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll just reiterate it. Gehenna Gaming is going to have a new show coming out soon, later this year, called In Fear and Love. It's a Pasión de las Pasiones actual play podcast about the cast of a telenovela soap opera and the crew dealing with supernatural shenanigans, love triangles, and revenge.
That sounds like it's going to be amazing.
Oh, we've already recorded the first episode, and it was a lot. We had a great time.
And that's going to be on Twitch?
Yeah, it's going to be on Twitch and on, as I said, Gehenna Gaming.
Great.
Which is a wonderful channel if you love horror.
Be sure to tune in for sure. And I think that brings us to a good stopping point for tonight. I just want to say thank you again for joining me, and thank you for everyone out there listening who stood with us through all the technical difficulties we started the night with. Thanks for joining us here at Goodberry Cafe. I hope that you've all enjoyed your stay, and I hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks on Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, same space. But until then, I encourage you to follow and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you follow Hector's socials that are in the chat. And I hope that you have a very good night.